Who wants to make a deal? According to Chris Haynes, the Lakers and the Nets are working on a trade for Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook. Meanwhile, we're still on hold waiting for a trade for Kevin Durant, the two-time Finals MVP. Broke his silence today via Twitter. It's the first time we've heard from him since he reportedly requested a trade from the Nets. This is what KD had to say, quote, "The ones who were locked in that gym with me know what it is. They know what I'm about. If you haven't been in there with me, ask around."
Nets will send out some more salary in the deal. So it seems like one of the sticking points, according to our Chris Haynes, is the inclusion from Brooklyn of Joe Harris or Seth Curry. It seems like the Lakers would prefer to get Seth Curry back. He's on an expiring contract. Joe Harris, who's coming off ankle surgery, has 2 years left on his deal. So that is the dance. And you see some of the options there. In addition to Russell Westbrook, the Nets could receive Talen Horton-Tucker or Kendrick Nunn. That works, as well as draft picks, swaps, things like that. So these teams will go back and forth. GA, we were talking about this before the show. It seems like outside of the Lakers and Nets, there's probably a limited market for Westbrook and Kyrie. So I'll be interested to see if these two teams are able to work out a deal.
Yeah.
When Kyrie announced he was opting in, I was like, okay, we can move on. This is not going to be a thing. But that's not what my phone was telling me. That's not what the executives were telling me. That's not what the agents were telling me. They are saying, this ain't over. Because the Nets made it clear to everybody that they did not want the status quo. If nothing else changed, that they were not going to be happy, and they weren't sure that this satisfied that situation. And it's not just because of the lack of the vaccine mandate. The entire way that Kyrie operated for the last couple of seasons, not just what happened with the vaccine, was part of what Sean Marks and really by proxy Joe Tsai was talking about.
Communication gaps and lack of communication.
So I would like to tell you, I would like to say this be put to bed, and I wouldn't have to worry about Kyrie. But that's not what my sources are saying. They're saying they don't know if this is still going to work. So you might say to yourself, well, why would this possibly happen? How could the Lakers still do this? And here's the nuance of it. I agree that if you just look at it on a raw piece of paper, you'll say you're crazy. What are you talking about? How could they possibly trade Russell Westbrook for Kyrie Irving? Well, here's what you have to understand. In that hypothetical trade, the Lakers would save approximately $30 million. That's right. They would potentially move from having Russell Westbrook to having Kyrie Irving and save $30 million. How the heck could they save $30 million? You must be out of your mind, Brian. What are you possibly talking about? Well, Kyrie Irving makes $11 million less than Russell Westbrook. So that's straight cash.
Straight cash.
And then you look at the fact that the Lakers are probably going to be in the luxury tax. Mm-hmm. And when you factor in the tax money savings, you could massively upgrade your talent by saving $30 million. Does that sound like a good deal?
Sounds like a great deal.
Okay, does it sound like a deal that you might be willing to throw in a draft pick or two?
A 2027 draft pick? Yeah, I'll throw that in.
And maybe we can
maybe
negotiate.
another one, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So now from the Nets end, well, why would the Nets do it? Why would the Nets take Russell Westbrook back? Because he's an obvious downgrade and he's more expensive. Why would the Nets possibly do that? Well, this is where we have the unknown. Where is Kevin Durant on the current situation? I don't have an answer for you. Is Kevin Durant, is he okay with going forward with Kyrie Irving? Is he okay with, if the Nets were willing to try to move Kyrie Irving, how would that affect where Durant is? Because the Nets, in that scenario, they would pick up a $47 million player who could now be traded elsewhere, and they would have picks from the Lakers and picks that they would have from the 76ers that they now can go shopping with for another trade later on. Or they can say, we may actually operate better this year without Kyrie Irving here, and then next year have a bunch of salary cap space that they might be able to maneuver with. Where is Kevin Durant on that concept? I don't know. So I'm not sitting here saying that I think any of that's going to happen, but I got people who are very high-ranking officials in this league saying this is something that the Nets could still be looking at, and that's all I was pointing out.
So I just want to jump on this for 1 second. So, Wendy, my only thing is I get that the business side of it makes sense. I understand that. And you bring up the point about where is Kevin Durant on this. You know, we did hear him on a podcast, his own podcast, et cetera, is talking essentially about, I'm staying out of that kind of stuff. But to me, his lack of saying something says everything you need to know about their relationship, because that has been consistent with how KD has treated Kyrie Irving throughout all this. I'm talking about through all the stuff with George Floyd, throughout all the stuff with the January 6th insurrection, throughout all the stuff with the pandemic. He has not said anything. He's been loyal. He's been loyal to him. So to me, like that, a lot of people always say, well, how is this the right move? And I'm like, Kyrie, to me, feels like he is the person saying, like, responding to Katie saying, I'm going to reward that loyalty by being with you for another year. I see the relationship being so close and tight. I don't know if I see KD coming out and saying, I'm willing to make the right business move for where I want this franchise to be, because I don't know if he's looking at this by saying, I plan on being with this franchise for the next 5 years.
Wait a minute. What did you just say that Kyrie was saying? That he's going to stake with his commitment? I mean, that's a public relations spin. A couple days ago, he was asking for a sign-and trade to find a way out of there.
But that's what I was trying to tell Jay. But I feel like that's all leverage.
I feel like that was a game play because he wanted
and
a longer term.
Didn't work.
It didn't work. I came on the show and said it didn't work.
So now he can say that I'm countering my commitment. I don't care. I mean, you may be right. I don't care about that statement. That statement carries no water with me. I mean, Kyrie's got to do what's best for his career.
I understand.
And the concept of getting traded elsewhere increased the chances he could get a new, much bigger contract than the Nets were offering. That's what he was doing. The idea of keeping his commitment to Durant, because it's not a 4-year commitment for Durant. Durant extended his contract.
I understand. But,
so it's Durant's like this commitment goes much further than 4 years.
But that's what I'm saying. If you're the Nets, it depends upon how you weigh this though. Like, don't you see how this plays out? Like for a minute before you just make a move and
okay, yeah. Hey, listen, I thought it was over, Jay, and I want it to be over. But I'm just telling you what the people in the league are saying.
Brian Windhorst joining us here this morning on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Brian, so out of all the teams, obviously the Lakers and Kyrie, they got a little twinkle in the eye with each other. Outside of the Lakers, there's anybody else that may be pursuing or feel a certain way about Kyrie?
At $36 million to trade for, it's hard for me to see today. I think if Kyrie had opted out of his contract and was available for either the $6 million taxpayer mid-level or was available for the $10 million full mid-level, which some teams have, I think there's a lot of teams interested in Kyrie on a short deal, massively undervalued. So, like, when you hear about teams that were interested in Kyrie, if he opted out, I would say there'd be a handful. Teams are interested in trading what it would take to get him. I don't think the list is that long, but it's June 29th. I don't know where the lay of the land is going to be. In a month, in 6 months, we'll see. Here's what I do know: the last full season that Kyrie played, which was the pandemic shortened year, the in between the bubble and last season. He was a 50, 40, 90 player. Mm-hmm. He played, I think, 54 of the 68 or 70 games. Like he played more of a percentage of games. He was really good that year. And if he comes back this year and plays something along that line, he'll be very good this year.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.